Imperial space was calm, silent, and peaceful. Patrol ships floated like silver arrows across the darkness, watching the borders of the great empire. For 200 years, nothing had challenged them. No enemy dared to enter their territory. No unknown fleet had crossed their lines. But on this day, everything changed. High above the blue star of Arion 6, Imperial sensors suddenly lit up with warning signals. Red lights flashed in command rooms. Officers looked at their screens with wide eyes. Something enormous, something completely unexpected, was entering their space. A junior officer in the Imperial watchtower swallowed hard as he spoke. "Sir, I am detecting multiple FTL signatures." "How many?" the commander asked, annoyed more than alarmed. The officer hesitated. "Not multiple. Thousands." For a moment, the command center went silent. Only the humming of machines filled the room. The commander thought the officer was joking, but the fear in his eyes said everything. "Put it on main screen," the commander ordered. And then they saw it. One by one, like ghosts rising from another dimension, gigantic ships dropped out of FTL. They were dark, silent, and shaped in ways no Imperial engineer had ever seen. Their surfaces were rough, battle-scarred, patched with unknown metals. They looked old, ancient even, but carried a strange presence. A dangerous presence. The commander stepped forward, whispering, "What are those?" No one answered. More ships appeared, then more, until the sky filled with a sea of unknown vessels. There were carriers with wings as long as cities, destroyers shaped like knives, and strange cube-like ships that emitted faint blue glows. "Any identification?" the commander asked. The officer shook his head. "None at all. They are not in any Imperial database. No signals, no greetings, no codes, no messages. They are completely silent." The Empire had encountered pirates, rebels, alien raiders, but never a silent fleet of this size. Silence meant danger. Silence meant confidence. Silence meant power. Far away, in the Imperial capital, alarms rang across the Emperor's palace. Advisors rushed to throne chambers. Fleet admirals were called from their sleep. Every screen in the palace displayed the same thing. Unknown human ships. Humans, but not Imperial humans. Long ago, a group of humans left the Empire and vanished into uncharted space. Some said they died. Some said they found new worlds. Some believed they turned into myths. No one truly knew what became of them. Until today. Back at the border, Imperial Fleet Command acted fast. 8 Imperial war fleets moved into position, forming a giant wall of firepower. Their ships were large, polished, bright, and modern, pride of the Empire. Compared to them, the unknown fleet looked old, rusty, and almost broken. "Send a warning," the commander ordered. "Force them to respond." A communication officer opened the channel. His voice echoed through speakers across both fleets. "Unknown vessels, you have entered Imperial space. Identify yourselves at once or face military action. This is your final warning." Everyone waited. 10 seconds passed. 20 seconds. 30. Still no response. The commander clenched his jaw. "Increase power to weapons. Prepare to." Before he could finish, something unexpected happened. A sound came through the speakers. A strange sound. Soft at first, then louder. Laughter. Not alien. Not mechanical. But human. A deep, confident, amused laugh echoed across the Imperial channel, filling every command room. Officers froze. The commander's heart raced. Humans were laughing at them. A calm voice followed, firm and fearless. "We heard your warning. We simply chose not to answer it." The commander's face turned pale. The unknown fleet was not silent. They simply didn't care about Imperial demands. "This is Imperial territory," the commander said, trying to sound strong. "State your identity." The voice on the other side chuckled again. "We are humanity. Just not the humanity you remember." Imperial officers looked at each other in confusion. The Empire believed it was the only human civilization. These strangers were proving that wrong. Another message came through, the tone colder this time. We did not come here to kneel. We did not come here to obey. We came to speak. But if you choose to threaten us, a pause, then you will learn what we became in the dark. The commander's hands trembled. What did they become? What did they survive? Why did they return? Before he could ask more, the unknown fleet began to move. Slowly, silently, their giant ships shifted into formation. Their engines glowed like tiny blue suns. The Empire watched them in fear, waiting for an attack. But no attack came. They simply moved forward, like waves approaching a shore. "Sir," the officer whispered, "if they keep advancing, they will enter Imperial core routes." "Hold fire," the commander said with a dry throat. "Do not provoke them." The unknown voice returned one last time. "We do not seek war, but do not mistake our silence for weakness." Then the channel cut. The commander stared at the fleet ahead. For the first time in decades, he felt something he had forgotten: fear. And in the darkness of space, the ancient human fleet continued moving forward, slowly, silently, like a storm returning home. The Imperial High Council gathered inside the Grand War Chamber, a massive room shaped like a circle, with glowing star maps on every wall. Admirals, generals, and ministers filled the space with loud voices, each one trying to speak louder than the other. Fear was hiding under their words, but no one wanted to show it. In the center, the Emperor sat on his dark metal throne, listening carefully. His face was calm, but his fingers tapped the armrest, an old habit he had whenever he sensed danger. "Your Majesty," Admiral Corvin began, pointing at the hologram of the unknown fleet, "these ships look old and weak. Their outer armor is damaged. Their design is primitive. We can destroy them easily." "Easily," another minister snapped. "Did you not hear their message? They are fearless. They did not freeze when we threatened them." Admiral Corvin waved his hand. "Bravery cannot stop plasma cannons. If they fight, they will lose." The Emperor looked up slowly, his eyes sharp. "And what if they do not lose?" Silence filled the room. The Empire was known for its strength. Hundreds of worlds, thousands of fleets, billions of trained soldiers. They believed nothing could overpower them. But this new human fleet, it had appeared from nowhere, crossed impossible distances, and showed no fear. The Emperor leaned forward. "We assume they are weak because their ships look old. But appearances lie." Their silence was not fear. It was confidence. A nervous advisor spoke. "Should we attack first, Your Majesty?" Many heads turned. The idea felt dangerous, but also familiar. The Empire often solved problems through force. The Emperor did not answer immediately. He studied the hologram again. The unknown ships were drifting deeper into Imperial space, slow but steady, like a tide that ignored obstacles. "Not yet," he said. "Let us see what they want first." The commander of the border fleet, Admiral Raycon, paced inside his command ship. His officers sat quietly, watching the unknown fleet on their screens. "Any communication from them?" Raycon asked. "No, sir," the officer replied. "Only that laugh." Raycon frowned. A fleet that could laugh in the face of danger was either foolish or terrifyingly strong. "Show me their formations," Raycon ordered. A large display lit up, showing how the unknown humans arranged their ships in perfect patterns. Triangles, spirals, shifting walls. Formations that no Imperial fleet could perform without crashing into itself. "How are they maneuvering like this?" Raycon muttered. The formations looked chaotic at first, but after a moment, Raycon realized something chilling. They were not random. They were precise. Too precise. His heart dropped. These people have trained for centuries. Deep inside the lead ship, the human commander, Captain Arden, watched the Imperial lines. His officers stood beside him, calm and ready. "Imperials are preparing heavy weapons," an officer said. Arden smiled. "Of course they are. They believe strength is the only language. What is our response?" "Hold formation. Move slowly. Let them be the nervous ones." A young officer looked uneasy. "Captain, are you sure we should not warn them again?" Arden shook his head. "We offered peace. They chose pride. Now they must understand who we became. He stepped closer to the viewing window. The Imperial ships shined bright and clean. His own fleet looked scarred and patched, like warriors who lived through storms the galaxy never imagined. They see rust, Arden whispered, but they cannot see the fire inside. A minister hurried in, sweating. Your Majesty, reports say that a part of the unknown fleet is scanning our communication satellites. Scanning, Corvin said. Let them scan. They cannot break Imperial encryption. They already did, the minister replied. The room erupted in noise. Admirals shouted. Ministers panicked. How fast did they break it? The Emperor asked quietly. 3 seconds. Everyone fell silent. 3 seconds. Imperial encryption was supposed to take months to break, even for the smartest minds in the Empire. Admiral Corvin finally looked worried. Your Majesty, this fleet is not simple. The Emperor stood. The entire chamber froze. We will not attack yet, but prepare every fleet within 5 sectors. If these humans wish for peace, they will get peace. If they wish for war, he paused. We will defend the Empire. At the border, Admiral Raycon saw something alarming. Sir, an officer said, voice shaking, the human fleet is moving again. Raycon watched as the unknown ship slowly drifted toward the Imperial defense line. Raise shields, he ordered. All ships prepare for battle. Weapons ready, another officer called. No, Raycon shouted. Do not fire unless they fire first. We cannot risk starting a war blindly. The officers exchanged nervous glances. The unknown human fleet kept advancing. Steady, silent, unshaken. Raycon felt a cold shiver run down his spine. They're not afraid of us, he whispered. Not even a little. Far away in the palace, the Emperor stood at the window, watching the stars. Whoever these humans are, he murmured, they did not return to bow before us. He turned away, fear touching his voice. They returned to show us what the Empire forgot. The unknown human fleet moved like a silent storm across the dark space. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady and sure, as if nothing in the galaxy could stop it. Imperial ships watched from a distance, confused and uneasy. Every Imperial officer expected fear, hesitation, or weakness. But these humans showed none. Inside the Imperial Border Command, Admiral Raycon stood with his arms crossed, eyes fixed on the massive screen. His officers whispered behind him. Sir, why are they so calm? Why don't they answer us? Why are they not readying weapons? No one had an answer. Raycon sighed. They are not here to impress us. They are not here to threaten us. They are here because they already know their strength. Captain Arden stood on the bridge of his flagship, a vast hall filled with dim blue lights and humming energy cores. His crew worked quietly, their movements smooth and coordinated. They didn't panic. They didn't argue. They were focused. A young officer approached him. Captain, Imperial scanners are trying to read our systems again. Arden nodded. Let them. They won't understand what they find. The officer opened a side screen. Imperial data lines shot across it, struggling to decode the human ship structure. Sir, their systems show us as damaged. Arden laughed softly. Good. Let them believe the lie. He stepped forward, resting a hand on the display. Their ships looked old on the outside, but the truth was hidden beneath layers of advanced armor and strange energy shields. These ships were not primitive. They were evolutions of centuries of survival. Humanity had not spent their time in the dark running away. They had been building, learning, and fighting enemies the Empire knew nothing about. Enemies far worse than the Empire. Enemies that forced humanity to grow. And the Imperial Science Tower, far from the front lines, scientists gathered around a holographic projection of the mysterious ships. The room was filled with nervous energy. These energy readings are impossible, one scientist said. Their power cores are stable, but look at this output. Another scientist zoomed in. The energy fluctuates as if the ship is alive. That makes no sense, a third argued. Technology cannot behave like that. But the data didn't lie. The lead scientist backed away from the hologram with trembling hands. We have never seen this. Not in any alien species. Not in any lost human technology. Whoever these humans are. They changed. The Emperor listened to the reports with a hardened face. Every message arriving from the border sounded worse. Unknown technologies. Impossible energy readings. Strange ship movements. An advisor cleared his throat. Your Majesty, perhaps we should open peaceful negotiations? And look weak in front of the council? Admiral Corvin protested. The Emperor raised a hand. Silence. Pride will not save us, the Emperor said. If these humans hold such power, a foolish attack will destroy both our fleets. Another advisor asked, Then what do we do, Your Majesty? We wait. We speak. We learn. The Emperor paused. His voice lowered. And we pray they remember mercy. Back at the border, Captain Arden finally ordered his communication officer to send a message. Channel open, the officer said. Arden spoke calmly, without anger, without fear. Imperial fleet, we left your space centuries ago. We traveled through storms of fire. We crossed worlds where the sky itself tried to kill us. We fought creatures that swallowed suns. We evolved because we had to. His voice grew colder. We are not the weak exiles you once knew. Admiral Raycon listened from his command chair, heart beating fast. Every officer in the room stood frozen. Arden continued. We do not seek war, but we will not kneel. The message ended. Raycon let out a slow breath. What did they face out there? No one dared to answer. Moments later, strange symbols began glowing on the human ships. Imperial scanners detected a huge spike in energy. Sir, an officer shouted. Several of their ships are activating something. Are they firing weapons? Raycon asked. No, sir. But whatever they are doing, our sensors cannot track it. The symbols brightened, forming patterns like constellations across their hulls. Then it happened. A human ship, one of the smaller frigates, vanished. Not jumped, not cloaked, not hidden. It simply disappeared like it was never there. Raycon gasped. Find it. I can't, the officer shouted. It's gone from all sensor readings. Seconds later, the frigate appeared behind the Imperial fleet. Silently, effortlessly. Raycon's eyes widened. What technology is this? The officer whispered. Sir, we would not survive if they attacked us. Raycon didn't respond. He already knew. Inside the human flagship, Captain Arden watched the Imperial chaos with a calm expression. Now they understand, he said. We did not return as refugees. He turned to his officers. We returned as survivors. Then he looked at the star map of Imperial space. And survivors do not bow. The air inside the Imperial Border Command felt tight, like everyone was holding the same long breath. Admiral Raycon stood in front of the main display, watching the mysterious human fleet with tense eyes. They floated in perfect formation, silent, unmoving, confident. Raycon whispered, Why do they not fear us? Before anyone could answer, a loud alarm echoed across the bridge. Beep, beep, beep. An officer shouted, Sir, the Imperial Dreadnought Iron Crown is powering its main cannon. Raycon spun around. Who gave that order? No one, the officer said, panic in his voice. Captain Vargon is acting on his own. Raycon cursed under his breath. Captain Vargon was known for his aggression. An officer who believed strength solved everything. A man who followed pride over logic. What is he doing? Raycon muttered. On the display, the Iron Crown slowly drifted ahead of the Imperial line, its massive front cannon glowing with bright orange light. Captain Vargon, this is Admiral Raycon, he barked into the comm. You are ordered to stand down. No answer. Vargon, do not fire. That is a direct order. Still nothing. The officer turned pale. Sir, he muted the command channel. Raycon slammed his fist on the console. Idiot! Every Imperial ship watched as the dreadnought aimed directly at the human fleet. Captain Arden stood calmly, hands behind his back. His officers watched the glowing Imperial cannon with tense eyes. Captain, one officer said, they are about to fire. Arden nodded once. Do not move. Let them make their choice. But sir, their cannon is strong enough to destroy cities. Arden raised a hand. And yet it will not harm us. His crew fell silent. Outside the window, the Iron Crown fired. A massive beam of burning plasma shot across the void, bright enough to light the darkness like a new star. It roared through space and struck the front of a human battleship. The bridge of the Imperial command went dead silent. The beam hit the human ship with full force. And nothing happened. No explosion. No damage. Not even a scratch. It was as if the attack touched a wall of invisible glass. The plasma scattered into tiny sparks and vanished into the dark. Officers stared, mouths open. Sir, one officer whispered. That was the strongest cannon in the fleet. Raycon swallowed hard. And it did nothing. Another officer checked his screen again and again, as if the data must be wrong. Sir, the human ship's shields didn't even fluctuate. Raycon exhaled slowly, a cold fear crawling into his chest. What have these humans become? But panic spread faster among the Imperial fleet. They will fire back, an officer shouted. We're doomed. Retreat now. Raycon raised his voice. Hold positions. Do not fire another shot. But fear was now stronger than orders. On the bridge of the ship that was hit, Captain Arden received a report. Captain, we took no damage. Shields remain at full strength. Arden nodded. Good. Continue holding position. Shall we return fire? Arden's expression hardened. No, we do not punish fear. We punish aggression. The officer frowned. Was their attack not aggression? Arden turned to him. No, that was panic. Panic is a symptom of weakness, not hatred. He faced the Imperial line again. Send a message. A calm voice echoed across Imperial communication channels. Imperial fleet, we have taken your attack without resistance. We did not fire back. We chose restraint. Every Imperial officer froze in place. The human voice continued. If we wished for war, you would already be ashes. But we offer peace. Once again. The message ended. Silence followed. Deep, heavy silence. Raycon closed his eyes for a moment. They could have destroyed us. He looked at his officers. But they didn't. Meanwhile, inside the Iron Crown, Captain Vargon was red with rage. He slammed his fists against the console. How dare they ignore my attack? How dare they make fools of us? His officers tried to calm him. Sir, please, our shots are useless. We must stand down. Vargon pushed one officer aside. Power up all weapons. Fire everything. I will not be laughed at. His crew refused. Sir, we cannot. You are risking the entire fleet. Vargon's voice shook with madness. I said fire. He reached for the manual override. But before he could touch it, a ripple of blue light surrounded the human fleet and the Imperial screens. The human ships began glowing softly, their hull symbols shimmering like stars. Energy spread between them like threads of light. Raycon's heart dropped. What is happening? The human fleet did not fire weapons. They did not move aggressively. Instead, the energy extended outward, calm and steady, creating a vast sphere around both fleets. It was not an attack. It was a statement, a message of absolute, undeniable power. All Imperial engines shut down. All Imperial weapons went offline. Every ship froze. Not broken. Not damaged. Just disabled. The Empire had never seen such control. Raycon whispered in disbelief. They turned off our entire fleet, with a single pulse. Across the bridge, fear turned into something else. Respect. A final message came through, steady and cold. We have shown you only a fraction of our strength. Do not force us to show more. We came to speak, not to destroy. Then the energy sphere vanished. Imperial ships came back online. Raycon stared at the screen. They can end us whenever they wish, he said quietly. But they choose not to. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt truly small. And humanity felt impossibly large. The moment the human energy pulse vanished, the Imperial fleet hung in silence. Engines hummed weakly back to life. Lights flickered. Systems rebooted. But the confidence that once filled every Imperial ship was gone. Admiral Raycon stared at the holographic screen, unable to speak. The human fleet stood untouched, silent, watching. Their ships glowed with calm blue symbols, like ancient guardians waiting for judgment. An officer broke the silence. "Sir, they shut down our entire fleet without harming us." Another whispered, "If they wanted, they could have destroyed every ship in 1 second." Raycon slowly sat down, his knees weak. "Yes, and they didn't." The officers looked at him, confused. "What does that mean, sir?" "It means," Raycon said, voice low, "they have no desire for war. But they will not tolerate stupidity again." He glanced at the trembling image of the dreadnought Iron Crown on the display. Captain Vargon stood in shock on his bridge, staring at his frozen weapon systems like a child who just learned fire burns. The Empire had always believed fear kept enemies away. Now they learned fear could silence them. The Emperor sat alone in the dark council hall. Advisors slowly entered, whispering nervously. One advisor spoke first, voice shaky. "Your Majesty, the reports are true. The entire border fleet was disabled by a single pulse." Another added, "Our weapons could not even scratch their shields." A minister sank into his chair. "We are no longer the strongest force in the galaxy." Admiral Corvin still tried to defend Imperial pride. "This proves nothing. It could be a trick." The Emperor slammed his hand on the table. "Enough." Everyone froze. "These humans are not a threat because of their ships," the Emperor said. "They are a threat because they are united, focused, disciplined." Corvin frowned. "So what do? "We stop underestimating them," the Emperor replied. "And we start listening." A heavy silence followed. No one dared to argue. Captain Arden stood on his bridge with clasped hands. His officers monitored Imperial activity. "Imperial fleets are staying still," an officer reported. "No weapon charging. No formations. They seem stunned." Arden nodded. "Good. Fear teaches what pride hides." Another officer showed a screen. "Captain, their communication lines are chaotic. Messages everywhere. Confusion across their ranks." Arden looked at the spiraling Imperial messages. "They expected us to be broken exiles. They never imagined we became something stronger." He walked toward the main window, watching the glittering Imperial ships. "They still do not understand our purpose." Inside Raycon's command ship, arguments erupted. "Sir, we must retreat," one officer said. "No, we should hold position," another replied. "Should we call for reinforcements?" "No. Reinforcements might trigger them." The tension kept rising until Raycon shouted, "Quiet!" The room fell still. Raycon took a breath. "We will not retreat. We will not attack. We will wait." "But sir." "We wait," Raycon repeated, "because anything else will be suicide." His officers nodded reluctantly. The Empire had never waited for anyone. It had always marched, conquered, demanded. Now it waited for humans. Across Imperial space, rumors spread like wildfire. "Did you hear? One human ship teleported behind a battleship. An Imperial dreadnought fired at them, and nothing happened. They shut down an entire fleet without touching us." The common people whispered in fear. Soldiers questioned their training. Commanders doubted their strength. And on scattered colony worlds, old stories returned. Stories of the humans who left long ago. Stories of the ones who survived the Great Exodus. Stories of the children of the dark. For the first time in Imperial history, the population felt something stronger than loyalty. They felt uncertainty. Inside the Iron Crown, Captain Vargon paced in circles, muttering to himself. How did they ignore my attack? My ship, my weapons." His officers watched with pity. Vargon had built his entire life on pride, on the belief that power meant control. Today, both shattered. One officer stepped forward. "Sir, maybe we should apologize." Vargon's face twisted. Apologize? To them. But even he could not deny reality. He sank into his chair. We are nothing to them. His ship felt smaller than ever. The Emperor sent a final message to the border fleet. Do not engage. Do not retreat. Hold position and wait for my next order. Raycon read the message and nodded. The Emperor understands. But his officers did not share his calm. Sir, one of them whispered, what if they move again? Raycon looked at the human fleet on the display. If they move, we negotiate. If they threaten, we submit. If they attack, he pushed the thought away. We pray they do none of those. Suddenly, the human fleet lights shifted. A single ship broke formation and drifted toward the Imperial line. Officers jumped from their seats. They're advancing. They're coming toward us. Raycon's voice cracked. Hold, hold. The ship came closer and closer, moving slowly, almost respectfully. Then it stopped just a few kilometers from the Imperial flagship. A message appeared on every Imperial screen. We are ready to speak. Raycon felt relief wash through him, but also fear. Humanity had shown restraint. Now it was time for the Empire to face the truth. They were no longer the masters of the galaxy. They were students standing before a forgotten teacher. A deep silence filled the space between both fleets. The single human ship remained positioned in front of the Imperial flagship, glowing softly with blue lights that shifted like living stars. Admiral Raycon stood on his bridge, unable to tear his eyes away from it. Sir, they want to speak, an officer said quietly. Raycon nodded, trying to steady his voice. Open the channel. The screen flickered, and Captain Arden's face appeared. Calm, controlled, unreadable. Behind him, the dim blue light of his ship gave him an almost ghostly presence. Imperial Fleet, Arden began. We thank you for choosing silence over foolishness. Raycon swallowed hard. We are ready to talk. We wish no conflict. Arden watched him for a moment before replying. Words are good, but the Empire trusts power more than words. No one could argue with that. Raycon breathed slowly. What do you want us to understand? Arden turned aside. Not what we want you to understand. What you need to understand. He signaled to his crew. A soft humming filled the human flagship. Blue patterns spread across the ship's hull like glowing veins. The other human ships reacted instantly, forming a perfect ring around a distant object, a small dead moon orbiting an empty star. One of Raycon's officers zoomed in their scanners. Sir, they are surrounding the moon. Raycon leaned closer. Why would they? His voice faded as the human fleet began to move. Inside every human ship, energy rose like a rising tide. Their hull symbols shined brighter, pulsing in the same rhythm, as if the entire fleet shared one heartbeat. Energy levels increasing. An Imperial officer reported nervously. How much? Raycon asked. The officer stared at his screen. More than we have ever recorded. More than our battleships can generate at full power. From just one ship? No, from all of them. Raycon looked at the moon on the display. Something terrible and beautiful was about to happen in the Imperial Palace. The Emperor and his advisors watched the same footage on a massive screen. Your Majesty, one advisor whispered. They are charging something. The Emperor said nothing. His eyes stayed locked on the moon. Another advisor stepped forward. Should we send reinforcements? And trigger them? The Emperor replied calmly. No. We watch. Captain Arden raised his hand slightly. His voice echoed through every human ship. Begin. One by one, human vessels pointed their strange energy cores toward the moon. Their lights grew brighter, white, blue, and gold. The dead moon glowed faintly under their aim, as if waking from a long sleep. Raycon's officers trembled. Sir, the moon's surface temperature is rising. The gravitational field is shifting. What are they doing? Raycon whispered. A demonstration, a message. Then it happened. No explosion. No shockwave. No violent blast. The moon simply opened. Like a flower splitting in slow motion, cracks spread across its surface. Clean, smooth lines, as if carved by invisible blades. The moon broke into large pieces, drifting apart silently. Gasps filled the Imperial bridge. Impossible, one officer breathed. Another stared wide-eyed. They cut a moon apart, without firing a single weapon. The broken pieces floated peacefully across space, glowing under the distant star. The Empire had destruction technology, missiles, cannons, beams. But this was something else. This was control. This was mastery. This was power beyond imagination. Captain Arden turned back to Raycon, expression unchanged. This was a dead moon. Lifeless. Empty. No harm done. Raycon's voice shook. You did that with no weapons? Arden nodded. Weapons are crude. We prefer precision. Why show us this? Raycon asked. To make you understand what we restrain, Arden answered. We do not destroy out of anger. We destroy only when we must. The Empire threatened us. We chose not to harm you. But now you know what we can do, if forced. Raycon lowered his eyes. We understand. Arden leaned closer. Do you? His voice was quiet, but the weight behind it made everyone on Raycon's bridge hold their breath. Power is not our message, Arden continued. Our message is choice. We offer peace. But peace cannot grow where one side believes itself superior. Raycon nodded slowly. We have seen your strength. We will not make that mistake again. In distant outposts, Imperial soldiers froze as they watched the moon break apart. In research stations, scientists stared at the footage in disbelief. On colony worlds, civilians whispered ancient stories about the lost humans, now proven true. In the throne room, the Emperor breathed out slowly. This changes everything, he whispered. One advisor asked, Your Majesty, what do we do now? The Emperor closed his eyes. We listen. Back near the dead moon's remains, the human fleet returned to formation. Their lights dimmed. Their engines cooled. Captain Arden's voice came one last time. We did not come to conquer. We came to speak. Now the Empire finally understands what we became. He paused. A final line carried across all Imperial frequencies. We became the storm you once abandoned, and the shield you never had. The transmission ended. Raycon looked at the glowing human fleet with awe and fear. They had destroyed a moon without malice. They had disabled an entire fleet without killing a soul. They had shown restraint even in absolute power. And now, the Empire waited for humanity's next move. The remains of the broken moon drifted like silver dust in the darkness. The human fleet stayed in perfect formation, quiet and calm, as if nothing unusual had happened. But inside the Imperial fleet, nothing was calm. Every officer, every pilot, every commander felt the same heavy truth. Humanity was far beyond anything the Empire had ever known. Admiral Raycon stood frozen on his bridge. He felt as if gravity had grown heavier around him. His officers waited for orders, but Raycon only stared at the human flagship on the screen. Sir, one officer whispered, what do we do now? Raycon took a long breath. We wait for them. Across the galaxy, in the heart of the Imperial Palace, the Emperor finally stood. His long cloak brushed the stone floor as he approached the central holoscreen showing the human fleet. His advisors watched nervously. None dared speak. The Emperor touched the console and connected directly to Admiral Raycon's ship. Admiral, he said, prepare a full channel to the human commander. I will speak to them myself. Raycon nodded and opened the communication line. The screen flickered again. Captain Arden appeared. His expression remained calm, unreadable, but his eyes held a certain weight, like someone who had seen too much war and wanted no more of it. The Emperor bowed his head slightly. I am Emperor Calrith of the Imperial Dominion, he said, and today, I stand corrected. Arden didn't respond immediately. He waited, letting the Emperor continue. We believed we were the strongest. We believed no one could challenge us. We believed humanity died long ago. The Emperor lowered his gaze. We were wrong on all counts. The Imperial advisors whispered in shock. No emperor had ever spoken with such humility on a public channel. Arden's voice was calm. We did not come to humiliate you. The Emperor nodded slowly. Yet we are humbled. Across hundreds of Imperial worlds, citizens watched the broadcast as it was transmitted without delay. Children paused in their homes. Soldiers stopped in their bases. Scientists covered their mouths in disbelief. The Empire had never bowed to anyone. But now, before humanity, they listened. The Emperor straightened his shoulders. Captain Arden, the Empire, wishes to avoid destruction. We ask for peace. A real peace. Arden looked aside, then back to the screen. Peace is possible. But peace requires honesty. Then speak honestly, the Emperor said. Arden nodded. For centuries you expanded your rule by force. You never feared consequences. Today we showed you consequences do exist. But understand this clearly. We do not want your empire. We do not want tribute. We do not want control. Raycon listened, surprised. His officers exchanged confused glances. Arden continued. We want one thing. Safety. Leave humanity alone. Leave our worlds untouched. Respect our borders. And we will protect ours, and yours. The Emperor frowned slightly. Protect ours. Arden nodded again. The galaxy is changing. Old enemies rise. New threats grow in the dark. We saw them while traveling the deep void. The Empire will face things far worse than war, and far worse than us. A chill crawled through the bridge of every Imperial ship. What kind of threats? Raycon asked. Arden's answer was simple. Ancient ones. Arden looked directly at the Emperor. Humanity offers an alliance, not of rule, not of conquest, but of survival. The Emperor's eyes widened slightly. An alliance with you? If you want peace, Arden said, you must stand with those who understand the coming storm. We have knowledge, technology, and experience with things you have never seen. The Emperor hesitated. And what does humanity ask in return? Arden folded his hands behind his back. Only this. Do not treat us as lost children or primitive wanderers. Treat us as equals. Silence followed. Raycon's officers held their breath. The Emperor looked down for a long moment, then slowly nodded. You have it, he said. From this day, humanity stands beside the Empire, not beneath it. Arden finally allowed a small, faint smile. Then peace begins today. The Emperor made a gesture of respect, one no ruler had made to an outsider in 1,000 years. Captain Arden, thank you for holding back your power. Arden bowed his head. Thank you for choosing wisdom. The communication ended. The Imperial fleet lowered their weapons. Human ships dimmed their glowing cores. The tension in space slowly faded like a dying storm. Raycon released a breath he had been holding for minutes. It's over, he whispered, and the human flagship. The crew watched the starfield with quiet pride. Captain Arden looked at the bridge crew. We return home, he said softly. But not alone this time. His second officer asked, Do you trust them? Arden smiled slightly. I trust what they saw today. Fear can start war, but understanding can stop one. Outside the window, Imperial ships formed a safe escort, guiding the human fleet toward the shared space lane. For the first time in history, both sides traveled together. Not as enemies, not as rivals, but as something new. All across the galaxy, people whispered about the day a moon was cut open, a fleet was humbled, and two ancient powers met again. Some called it a miracle. Some called it a warning. But history would remember it as something else. The day humanity returned. And the galaxy finally listened.